Welcome to the Book in You podcast presented by the Maxwell Leadership Podcast Network. Today is a very special day where we're going to get to hear from one of our friends, Randy Gravitt, one of our Maxwell Leadership Publishing authors. And we're excited to interview him, get to glean some wisdom and insight from him. And of course, I'm alongside Tim Elmore, Dr. Tim Elmore, and we're so thrilled for you all to join us today. Tim, how are we doing? Randy, how are we doing? So excited for the conversation today, my friends.
Randy, I'm really excited. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I always try to stay away from the doctor, but today it's a pleasure to be with Dr. Tim and you, Jared. I'm excited to be with you guys. Thanks.
That's great.
We're going to have some fun.
It's earned, by the way. It's an earned doctorate on that side of the TV. I want you to know.
That's right. That's good.
That's good.
Well, Randy, I'm going to jump right in. First, before we talk about your author experience, share with the listeners, what's your latest book about? Talk about the title and the topic.
Yeah, well, I actually brought it with me, Tim. I thought your team did such a great job with the cover. Winning Begins at Home is the name of the book. Looked fantastic. They did such a great job. And we'll get into all that. But it's about really how to win outside of work. We have an organization called Lead Every Day that I lead and work with Mark Miller. Maybe some of your audience will know who Mark is. He's a great friend and author as well. And anyway, we do a lot of work with companies and organizations, and it's a lot of fun. But I kept finding executive after executive who said, our company is going great, but my people are struggling, not so much at work, but outside of work. And so we're creating content for leadership and alignment and engagement and trying to help people execute and make money and profits and all that stuff. And we thought, how do we help people outside of work as well? Not just to focus on all that stuff that we normally do in the workplace. And I just couldn't find anything out there for leaders on how to win. I guess the old 9 to 5, that's what we do. But how do you win from 5 to 9? And so I kept hearing leaders basically say, if you win at work and you lose at home, I think you still lose. And so I thought I'm gonna write a book on this, and because I really do believe winning begins at home. And so yeah, we wrote I'll call it a leadership parable. Some of Mark's older books were in that parable genre, and I've loved Patrick Lencioni's stuff. John Gordon's a friend, and so I think those stories give us a way to resonate with characters and ideas. And then in the back of it, there's a 70-page activation guide to help people really create a blueprint to win where it matters most, which is home. And so, yeah, that's kind of I'm a storyteller. And so that's how it happened.
Randy, I'm thinking about my early career when I could have used this book. It dawned on me early on, we get trained for work, at least we men, and not trained to be good leaders at home or good, spiritual leaders or soul providers or whatever. So we tend to stay at work because, we're winning there. We're not winning at home. So I'm thrilled that you put a guide together like this. This is fantastic.
I think, Tim, to your point, I think the default is I'll just go back to work because I know what to do there. I get promotions there. I get raises there. I get, there's somebody that I can be validated by there. And I come home and I'm not really sure, is this working? Are my kids connecting with me? Is my spouse, all that. Nobody's really teaching us any of that stuff. So yeah, again, we thought it was important to put some language around it and give people, honestly, the fundamentals of family life. And if you think about sports teams, blocking and tackling for football, dribbling, passing, shooting for basketball, there are fundamentals. Musicians know the chords and scales, but at home, like, what are the fundamentals? And so we focused on those in the story, and I think it's going to help a lot of leaders. And I can't tell you how many people I've had that are our age who have said, I wish I'd had this, 25 years ago, but I've got a bunch of young leaders who are excited about reading it, and it's been good so far.
That's so cool. I tell you what, I'm consulting with one particular leader that works for an NFL team. And he was talking about the same challenge he has. He said, I've worked myself up, the ranks with this great ball club. But he said, I did not have a dad growing up, so I'm kind of making this up. But what I loved about his comments was he said, about every week I'll lean over to my wife when our kids are around and I'll go, how am I doing, sweetheart? He's just trying to get a grade on how he's doing. I thought, this is awesome that he's trying to win at home, just like he is on Sunday afternoon. That's so cool.
That's great.
That's neat.
It reminds me of one of the questions in the book. As a question, actually, I ask myself all the time is, how do I live my life in such a way that the people who know me the best love me the most? And I know so many leaders, the people who know them the best, respect them the least. And I thought that question was one that ought to be in there. I think it's something that we ought to wrestle with all the time. And if we get this right, and there are no perfect homes. I mean, we're all a mess. But I think if we get this right and we really begin to live that way, it's amazing what can happen. Not only do the people who know you the best love you the most, they might even like you, which would be, how cool would it be if the people that we all live with like this? I mean, some of us are harder to like than others. I mean, my wife and 4 daughters would tell you I'm not that likable sometimes, but I'm aspiring to get this right.
Yes, absolutely. We're on our way. That's neat. Well, Jared and I, Jared, I don't know if you want to jump in. Let me kind of set this up, and then I'd love for you to jump in too.
Sure.
What we're doing on this particular podcast is we're just wanting to help authors and aspiring authors meet other folks like you and saying, here's what I learned along the way. Here's my journey. So, Jared, you want to make a real quick comment before I jump in with some questions on the author process?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would love to learn from you, Randy. There's a couple of things that you mentioned there. One of them was you said you're a storyteller. And for a lot of our writers and our authors out there, they may feel like they're not naturally gifted in that area as a storyteller. And whether the book is a leadership fable or it's a fiction book with a lot of stories, or if it's a nonfiction book that's not a fable, but it is, built on principles, you still need to be able to illustrate the points you're making and be able to tell some stories. I wonder what you would say to an author who, would admit that they're not naturally gifted as a storyteller. What tips would you give them maybe to learn and develop that skill?
That's a great question, Jared. I think everybody does have a story, but I actually want to flip the coin and remind people that a book is it is about an idea, that for sure. It starts with an idea, but I think we're a lot better off as authors if we start with who's it for, not what's it about. I read an author who said that a book is not about something, a book is for someone. And so if I start with this idea of who am I trying to help, I think that's just a really good, solid place to start. And and in my case, this book, if nobody else even reads it, it helped me. So that I did get some benefit there from that. But I really do think a lot about what would it be, just take this book as an example. What would it be like for everybody to grow up in a great family? I know that's not going to happen. I know the world is a messy place. We talk about in our business, we dream of a world well led. I dream of everybody having a really good, stable family. When I look back on my own childhood, I got a lot of stability there. There was a lot of good stuff that happened. It wasn't perfect, and we were as dysfunctional as anyone. But at the same time, there was a lot of good stuff that happened there. And I think how amazing would it be if everybody could experience that? And yet, when I go back to those fundamentals, nobody ever taught me that. And Tim made the comment a minute ago, I wish somebody had said this to me earlier. I'm the same way. I mean, Laura and I have been married 37 years now, 4 girls, grown. We messed up a lot of stuff. The girls will tell you. But we got 8 little grandkids now that are running around, which is fun. And I'm trying to still make progress here. But it's this idea that goes back to like, what's this about? And who can we connect these dots for? Yes, it is what it's about, but who's it for is the way that I think about that. So any author who's listening, any aspiring author, I would start with, who am I trying to help? Who's this for?
So
why am I doing this? And why does it matter? And I think that's actually been a new learning for me in the last 4 or 5 years, just to begin to think that way. And I think your book is going to be a lot more helpful if you think about who you're trying to help.
No doubt.
Incredible.
Well, we've got some questions for you, Randy, and I'm going to jump in based on what Jared just said. I'd love you to share some of the early challenges, or really just some of the challenges that you faced in the process of writing the book. Maybe give a little bit of a preview to an aspiring author, what the hurdles are when they're probably going to have to jump.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think as I think about this specific book, this was something that's been on my mind and heart for years. I actually had started and had a draft done right as COVID hit. And so it wasn't necessarily the best time to release a book at that point. I had written a couple of previous books that were published. One was a self-published book. One was with a New York publisher. And I'm thinking, okay, who's going to publish this book? First of all, that's something to think through. And when the world sort of shut down, so to speak, I didn't have a publisher in place. And so all that, I'll call it incubation time, because I think the book got better over that time as well. I worked on it a couple other times, and we'll probably get into the writing process in a minute. But I think that was, to me, one of the challenges is just, when is this going to be released? I knew it was important, but I, again, I was just holding this with open hands. And I thought, if this only helps my kids and grandkids and the people who care about me, that's great. We'll just go with that. Yeah. And if it ends up with a broader audience, that'll be great too. But the timing was just not great when I looked at it. But I always think you can't control your circumstances. You just control your attitude, your effort. And so I wasn't really worried about when. I was just really more worried about what. And I'd say that was the biggest challenge. The other thing for me is, I'm a pretty busy guy. We got a lot going on. We travel a lot, speaking all the time, doing all kind of stuff. And just I said I'm a storyteller. I'm not necessarily an author. and the discipline to sit in a chair and to do the work and all that. I struggle just as much as anybody else there. Not what I say is, there are other people probably who don't struggle as much as I do there. So, making yourself do the work, falling in love with the work. That's obviously a challenge to me as well, but
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
You mentioned earlier, Randy, that you decided to make this a parable. That's what you would call it, right? How did you make the decision to not write a traditional type of book and go with a parable?
Well, I mentioned a moment ago that I am a storyteller, and I think connecting with story is, it's as old as time, right? And I would say that I just connect better with the story. I mentioned, I've got friends that have written in that process. Mark now has, he's moved to the big kids table. He's writing real books now, with words and sentences, the whole thing. Mine don't have pictures in them. There's not that much, but I think the simplicity of a story it resonates with people, and the different characters and the different seasons and the things we go through. It just gives us a way to latch on. It makes ideas sticky. It is about the ideas at the end of the day, but I think the stickiness of it, was one of the things that attracts me to that. And I heard, was it David McCullough? He's a great author, historian. I heard him say one time he writes books that he wants to read. I thought, how simple. I say simple. It's not very, if you read one of his books, they're like big. He writes big books, with hundreds of pages. But I thought, I love reading these parables. They help me connect with ideas. And so I thought, there's got to be some other people out there who this would be helpful to. And so I decided to go that route.
Yeah, that's so good. And really, our brains do think in stories and pictures. This is how we remember stuff. So I think it's brilliant, and I'm glad you've done it. So talk to us real quick, just for a moment, about what were some of the surprises in the preparation process between I got an idea and the book is published.
And I'll give a little shout out to the Maxwell pub team here. I was really, I was surprised at how good they were. It was amazing from the editors to the whole process was just fantastic. The printing to from A to Z, it was just a really good. Jared, you even helped with some stuff there. I don't know what my expectations were. I'd worked with, like I said, we had done one ourselves, and we'd gone with Wiley for one out of New York. And so I sort of knew the gamut, and I was looking for something that I had a little more input in, and they were just fantastic. And it ended up being, their input was just brilliant. There's so many editors were awesome. Just amazing. I learned a lot, honestly. I've been writing for a long time, but I learned a lot through the process as well. And I feel like I got better as the thing went on. So, it was, that part to me was the biggest surprise as anything. And I think the other thing I would say, just go back to the content for a second, is I'm just continually surprised at how many people are resonating with this idea that if you win at work and you lose at home, you still lose. I mean, it makes sense that we would think that, but nobody's talking about it. And I had even had people, Tim, tell me, don't write this book. There's a reason no other authors have written this book. I mean, it won't sell. And I thought, I'm not writing the book to sell. I mean, I want to sell some books, but I don't make my living selling books. I really want to help people. And so I thought, I'm going to just do what I feel like I'm supposed to do. Be faithful to that. And I'll let somebody else worry about what happens on the backside of it. And that Maxwell team was perfect. I mean, it was great.
That's so cool.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for that, Randy. But what a beautiful, why, what a beautiful purpose that you're not in this to sell books. You're in this to make a difference and help people. And you talked about the team. I wonder if you could go a little deeper into the team and help our listeners with how truly this is a collaborative effort. Like a lot of times the misnomer is the author does all the work by him or herself. But the truth is there's a lot of people that are involved in that. Talk a little bit about the need for a team and, are you a collaborator? Is that natural for you? Was that difficult? Tell us about how that process was for you.
Yeah, that's a great question as well. You guys are asking great questions. So Mark, who I work with, Mark always says when we have a problem, we sort of have a secret here that we attack our problems with. We get a lot of smart people in a room, and it makes us look really smart when we do that. So, am I a collaborator? I'm just a big believer that we can accomplish a lot more together than we can on our own. Now, if I back up, this idea was mine. This is what I was, passionate about. I'm going to put this in the world, whether anybody wants it or not. I'm committed to doing this. And so I've got to have a partner who believes in that. And going all the way back to my introduction to you guys, I was encouraged on the first phone call. They were like, this is a great idea. And we're willing to help you. And so as I started down that road, I got connected to your author experience team and just, again, every single person from the editor at the beginning. I mean, I'll give you an example. There's something crazy that nobody knows, but there's a line in the book about neon tetras that I have in this thing and beta fish, and there's which is a crazy. You'll have to read it. But anyway, the editor comes back and tells me that the fish that I chose to be in a tank on its own falls off the thing. And anyway, she comes back and she's like, These are aggressive fish. You can't have this fish. You got to go with you. Like, who knew? I had no idea. And she is in the depths of, what fish go together and she tells me, she's like, you've got it in a 1 gallon tank. Those are saltwater fish. They would have to be in at least a 50 gallon tank. And I'm thinking, who in the world are you? I mean, how do you know this stuff? And so it was literally those little moments. I'm going, these people care about what is going on here and getting this right. She said, somebody's going to read this and go, there's no way that fish could be in a little 1 gallon fish bowl on the counter, and I'm thinking, this is really cool. And I told my wife, I'm like, you talk about an editor who is at next level. Yeah. Jen was just like thinking, at a world-class level for an editor. And it makes sense that there'll be world-class editors, but we don't sometimes think like who's doing the best editing in the world. And I've worked with lots of editors and I was like, okay, this is next level. It was great. And then the author experience stuff, I mean, they just email after email, great communication from y'all back to me, which was good. And then the cover, I love the cover. I love how it turned out. It was just, we've had some really cool books, but I thought this was the best cover. Your team, that did the design. And it's just on and on, Jared. Every little element of the process, they connected all the dots and shout out to all the team if they end up hearing this, but they did a great job. And I was very grateful for this book wouldn't be in the world if it weren't for that team.
That's gracious, Randy.
That has been my story as well. In fact, I work with Jen as well. It is a team effort, even if there's one name on the cover. So it's great to hear your gratitude. I feel that same gratitude for everyone that helped me along the way. You mentioned earlier that off the recording that this was your first solo book. Talk a little bit about that process that you went through for other solo authors out there listening in right now?
Yeah, well, I've been a co-author a couple of times with my friend Dan Webster. That's been great. Mark and I have written 15, 20 other field guides and quick start guides for all the content that we teach Chick-fil-A and other businesses around the world. I've contributed and actually written a lot of that content. But this was one where I felt like, okay, I need to do this, not necessarily on my own. I mean, that team of people, like I said, it wouldn't be here without them. But I don't know that I would say I needed to do this, but I just thought I need to do this. It's that kind of thing. You're just going, I need to do, and I've got other books that I'm working on and thinking about, and I'll keep trying to do that as I go. But I think in this case, I had a lot of people tell me this book is not, it's not going to help your business. It's not going to, and I'm just like, I'm not trying to help my business. I mean, I don't know, Tim, your experience, but you don't make a living selling books. I mean, it's just not, and I know that's probably not a popular thing to say on an author podcast. I think you have to ask yourself why you're writing. And for me, I've got other ways that we make an income. I think Jared said it a minute ago. I really was like, how can we make an impact? And I think if you think that way, and there are some J.K. Rowlings in the world who make a living off books, I'm sure, but I wasn't worried about that. I didn't give that a lot of thought. I just thought I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. And it was, as crazy as it sounded, I almost felt like this is my assignment. I need to do this.
Yeah.
So,
understand. Yeah. And it is the business around the book. We talk a lot about the streams of income that you can create around the book. You're exactly right. I think if you get in this game of hawking, books and trying to make a living on those, now the book is the vehicle, and the message of the book. If you think about it in terms of impact, there are other ways that you can impact people, and this book becomes the gateway to that. And those are the things that you can, of course, monetize as a business.
Yeah. Let me just add, I'll say that there are businesses that we work with. I mean, the first thing they said is, we need this for our people. So it's not like that nobody's buying the book. That's been great. But again, I think you go back to, why are you doing what you're doing? And if your motive is right and it is helpful, you're going to, it's going to be great. And if your motive's not right, I don't care. To me, I say I don't care. Other people might care, but I really don't care if my motive is not right and I sell a bunch of books and yet I'm a huckster or whatever. You're like, that's not what I want in my life. And I'm guessing your authors that are listening or aspiring authors, they don't either. They really do at some level want to put something in the world that's going to be meaningful to people and, lasting content, honestly.
No doubt about it. In fact, Randy, I think you've hit on a huge issue that Jared, we may want to do a whole podcast about it, but motivation. What is the motive? I think when we don't have great or pure motives, it shows up later. Why you do something ultimately determines what you do. And if it's heartfelt, the money may follow, but even if it doesn't, it's still okay. I think it was Tim Irwin that said years ago, books sell speeches and speeches sell books. And I think he would say what you just did too, that you're probably not going to be a millionaire off of just selling books, but the book becomes a vehicle, Jared. You just said that, to lead to speaking engagements. Valerie Burton just said that at Book in a Weekend, that she's never gotten rich off and she's written great books, but she said, boy, it sparks events that I do and podcast and broadcast. So a book can be a tool. And Randy, you're proof of this. And even today, this message is going out and people are going to pick up the book. So I think that's we just have to keep that pure motivation in mind and never lose it. So let me ask one more question, and then Jared, I'll let you ask another or wrap us up or whatever. Think about the people you're talking to right now, Randy. These are authors or aspiring authors. What's one piece of advice you'd share with a first-time author about your experience?
I would say, don't underestimate your idea, and don't underestimate the book that is in you. I'll use your phrase. I love that. There is a book in you. And if I go all the way back, Tim, we haven't talked about this, but if I go all the way back to where I grew up, I'm in a little small town, North Georgia. Your listeners from around the world can tell from the accent that I'm a good little Southern boy. And nobody in my family had ever been to college. I ended up going to college, first generation. And this has been a long time ago. So it's, I'm in the last, I came from another century. So, but I'll say this, when I got to college, I couldn't even get into an English class. I literally started out in a remedial class. I think there were 8 of us in the class. None of us spoke English. It's 7 of them didn't speak English because they were from other countries. I was just from the country. I mean, it was like literally, my remedial teacher, I'll never forget. She writes on my paper, you could be a good writer if you just learn the whole sentence thing. I was a disaster. And so if you can start where I started and just continue to make progress, I think if I can get here, anybody can get here. Now it's taken me a long time, but I think there are so many great listeners here who have great ideas, they're better at writing than maybe anything else they do. Or maybe it's just a side hobby or something, but they know I want to try to help some people. I love the idea of just starting where you are. And if you have an idea and you have a book idea, to me, the power is in the first draft. It's just get it on paper, literally, not to be crude here, but just to vomit it out. I mean, it's just like literally get it on paper. If you need to transcribe it in your phone, if you need to like write it on, notebook paper, the old flip charts. I mean, what you do, whatever you need to do, but get that draft on paper. And what I now know, I didn't know then, the first time I wrote, is there are so many great people who can help you with sentence structure and periods and commas. I mean, I've got people Jen would tell you like, dude, this guy, he needs another lesson on, I got out of remedial and I actually have a minor in English now, which is kind of funny, but wow. I made a lot of progress, but it's okay. There were thousands of corrections and mistakes and stuff. And just having the ability to get the idea on paper and then trusting that there's a team of people that can help you get it into its final form. I mean, to me, that was priceless. But I would say to that person who's starting out, don't underestimate where you came from. And as I look at this book, the thing that I think that makes it so special to me is there's so many pieces of my story in all the characters that as I look back on my life and I look back on the people who invested in me and the people who helped me and the people who coached me and the people who believed in me, there's a piece of that in this book. And I think if your listeners are going to write, be vulnerable, share your story, share your heart, and find a team of people that can help you do that. And if you do, I don't know what will happen with your book, but I know this: you'll be at the end of that process and you'll hold it. I got mine in my hand here. You'll hold it in your hand and you'll go, I'm proud of this work. I did my very best, and I had people to help me to overcome that. If I could add one more little thing, it would be the idea of if anybody's sitting there and they're thinking, I don't know if I'd write this or not, I would say if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you're going to get down the road and you will have regret.
Yeah.
And I think you'll also be disappointed in yourself. If you write a book and it's not like the greatest book in the history of the world, I think you can still feel really great about that. You don't have to, you might be disappointed that it's not better or whatever. But I think you can live with disappointment. I don't think you want to live with regret. And so I would say to all your aspiring authors, do the work, get it on paper, find a team, call you guys. Y'all, I'm sure will leave your contact info. I got a friend, by the way, Nick Westbrook's about to write with you guys. And so he's excited. I'm excited. He's got a great idea as well. And so, yeah, I mean, I love the fact that anybody who wants to get a book out in the world we live in, it's doable. And I think there's greatness in every person listening. I would love for them to share that with us. And I'm just like you guys. I love to read books, and I think we need better stuff to help us. And I'm trusting that your audience there will share what they're doing, and it'll help us all get better.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Shout out to Nick Westbrook,
Nick,
the Shepherd Leader podcast. If you want to, that's true though. If you want to hear more about the book, Winning Begins at Home, go to the Shepherd Leader podcast with Nick
I was just
Westbrook.
on his podcast. Yep.
Yeah. A couple weeks ago, I heard it. It was great. We love Nick and Randy. Just one quick thing as we come to a close. Imagine the person that's listening. Maybe she's in her late 40s. She has her own business. She's an entrepreneur. She coaches people and helps them, build their organizations and become better leaders. And she has such a big idea for a book that can really make a difference. But she's that first hurdle. It's that you said the power of the first draft, just getting it on the paper. What would you advise to get off that first hurdle, get off the blocks and put something on paper?
Well, let's push the ball 5 years down the road and let's look back. Was it Henry Cloud? Maybe I heard first talk this way, play the movie forward kind of idea.
Yeah.
He said 5 years are going to go by. You're either going to have a book after 5 years or you're going to look back and go, I still haven't written my book. And if that coach out there, the lady who's listening with that business, your book is going to scale your ideas. If you think about it, you can only be with a certain number of people, but your ideas in that book are going to give you endless impact. I mean, you guys said it, and we've done this as well. We've created a course around this, and we've done podcasts everywhere, and that stuff goes all over the world. And Mark and I did we did a month on this, and we literally just looked this week, 143 countries in the last few weeks that our stuff's been in. And I'm thinking, the world we live in now, that stuff is possible. But if I get 5 years down the road and I still don't have done what I need to because I was so busy that I didn't have time. I don't, this is bad English, but I don't think you don't have time. I mean, you've got to do the work at the end of the day. And I say this a lot. I've been telling people a lot the last few months. Noise is going to stay on your schedule. You're going to stay busy. You're going to have email noise, and you're going to have media noise and social media noise, all this noise. Good writing comes out of quiet, and quiet won't make it on your schedule unless you schedule it. And so I think putting that time on there, making sure that you're thinking about, again, who's it for? And I've got all these clients or all these potential clients or all these people that will hear me speak at some point. I want to make sure that I can leave them with a piece that's not a piece of me. It will be a piece of that lady who's going to write that book. But I want to leave them with a piece that's actually going to help them, that's going to give them the fundamentals that they need, in my case, to win outside of work. In her case, it could be any idea that is on her heart. And so I would just remind them, we got to live beyond the noise, and that place of quiet where I think that's where good writing takes place.
It's absolutely helpful. Live outside the noise, but the noise will always find its way on your calendar. The quiet, however, has to be intentionally added. We've taken that note. That's significant. And the writing comes out of the quiet. Randy, this has been awesome. Tim, as always, you've added incredible value as well. We're grateful for all of our listeners. We want to remind you all, thanks for joining us today. The world needs the book in you. We'll see you next time. Okay, what an awesome conversation with Randy Gravitt, with Tim Elmore. I just wanted to take a few minutes here and sort of recap the episode that we just had. Some really good points that I wrote down and took away. Start with who it's for. Randy said that it's most important to start with who it's for rather than what the book is about. I think the tendency is to go to what the book is about and pay too much attention, especially in the beginning, to crafting the message and outlining it to perfection. The foundation is who it's for. And if you can have your target audience in mind, if you can have your avatar in mind from the beginning, it's going to guide you throughout. What a great point from Randy there. Randy also said, I'm not writing books to sell books. I'm writing them to help people. I thought that was incredible to consider the why behind what we're doing here. Of course, we want to sell books, of course. And we've helped John sell 37 million copies. So we've been in this game for a while. We help people sell books. But there's more to this than just selling the book. And the number one reason that John writes books is to help people. Randy echoed the same thing. He's in this to help people. Now we're going to sell books, and we're also going to find other ways, other business opportunities, other streams of income around those books. Practically, is there a course that you should be developing around your book? Is there a speaking calendar that you need to fill up and try to look for speaking gigs that are out there? Are there corporate clients that you could go do workshops for? What are the streams of income around that book? I could list 10 or 12 more right here that we work with. But don't just think about making money on your book. First and foremost, think about helping people. And then you can build some other streams of income around that book. The third thing I wrote down that I thought was incredible is he said, the power is in the first draft. Get it on paper, even if it's not pretty. You heard us in the first or second episode when we talked about write it ugly, say it ugly, put it out into the book, into just on the page, just put it out. There's time to edit. There's time to get fresh eyes on it and help you make it better. But the power's in the first draft. Get it out. And then you can work from there. The last thing that I wrote down that was so impactful, Randy said, noise is going to make it on your calendar, whether you're intentional about it or not. Noise is a part of our world. Noise is around us and it's distracting. But quiet's where the writing happens. And so you've got to be intentional about setting up your calendar for quiet so you can make some progress with the writing, make some progress with your book and develop it that way. What an encouraging podcast from an author who's been doing this for a little while, but as he said, this is his first solo book. So for many of you that are just getting started, or maybe you've written a couple of books, I hope you're encouraged today. I hope you're as encouraged as I am by someone who's done it, who's stayed the course, and who has a lot to share. I also want to encourage you, if you come to the end of this episode and you're interested in taking advantage of an opportunity to maybe publish with Maxwell Leadership, we would love to have a conversation with you. Our team is ready and standing by to do a discovery call and find out more about you and your book and what you're looking for and how we can come alongside you and help you. We have several different avenues for helping you publish your book, and we'd love to talk to you about that. I want you to go to maxwellleadership.com/publishing if you're interested in us helping you publish your book. maxwellleadership.com/publishing, and our team will get back to you as soon as you go to that page and fill out that form. We would love to partner with you to help you get your message out to the world. We do believe, it's not just a trite saying, we do believe that the world needs the book in you. Thanks for being with us. We can't wait to see you next time.